This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Mark Martin. China's coronavirus is already hitting hard here at home in the U.S. The CDC has confirmed 5 cases, and it's investigating another 73 in 26 states. U.S. stocks are taking a hit as well. Our Heather Sells joins us now with more. Heather.
Mark, the race is on to contain this virus. Chinese authorities say it has killed at least 80 people so far, and it has infected more than 2,700. But public health experts in Hong Kong are warning that it is worse than that.
New data shows as many as 2,600 people could be infected with the coronavirus. Plus, up to 44,000 people could be incubating it. Last week, the World Health Organization held off in declaring the virus a global health emergency, but the organization's director has flown to China to help officials create the best containment plan. The new virus often starts with cold-like symptoms. It can then lead to a fever, cough, and pneumonia.
The characteristics of this virus are still being determined, which is why we're taking this as a serious threat to public health.
In the U.S., authorities have hospitalized and isolated the 5 patients who they say are in good condition. But in China, massive travel bans continue, affecting some 50 million people. The U.S. consulate in Wuhan now plans to use a charter plane to evacuate Americans trapped in the region. ABC News spoke with one young family desperate to leave.
My biggest concern for my 3-month-old, is developing an immune system. We're scared, and there's a little guilt involved putting him in this situation.
U.S. stocks tumbled earlier today after a sell-off in markets in Europe and Japan following China's latest announcement about the growing number of cases. Travel and tourism companies are seeing steep losses. Meanwhile, workers in Wuhan are working with prefabricated buildings to construct a second new hospital there. It will hold beds for 1,500 patients, and authorities say it will be ready next week.
Today, the mayor of Wuhan offered to resign if it would help combat the virus. He admitted that the city did not disclose news of the outbreak when it first became known, but said he was waiting on authorization from the central government of China. Mark.
All right, Heather, thank you for that update. Officials in Afghanistan say they are investigating after a U.S. military aircraft crashed this morning. Afghan National Army forces are headed to the site of the crash to assist in rescue and recovery operations. A Taliban spokesman said the aircraft went down just 6 miles from a U.S. military base in the eastern part of the country. Details are limited, but officials say the aircraft was a small U.S. Air Force jet and that 2 pilots were killed. U.S. military officials are also investigating. Turning now to Washington, at the Senate impeachment trial, the president's lawyers continue his defense today. Democrats are hoping that an upcoming book by former National Security Advisor John Bolton will contradict the Trump defense team's arguments. Dale Hurd has that story.
The stakes over witness testimony at President Trump's impeachment trial just got higher, with the leak of a new book by former National Security Advisor John Bolton that appears to undercut a key defense argument. In The Room Where It Happened, a White House memoir, Bolton reportedly writes that President Trump wanted to continue freezing $391 million in security assistance to Ukraine until officials there helped with investigations into Democrats, including the Bidens. But Deputy White House counsel Michael Purpura asked, how could there have been a quid pro quo with Ukraine when the Ukrainians were not even aware that the security assistance was paused?
There can't be a threat without the person knowing he's being threatened. There can't be a quid pro quo without the quo.
President Trump flatly denied the new report, tweeting, I never told John Bolton that the aid to Ukraine was tied to investigations into Democrats, including the Bidens. Saturday, President Trump's lawyers delivered opening statements in the impeachment trial.
We intend to show over the next several days that the evidence is actually really overwhelming, that the president did nothing wrong.
And as for the charge of obstruction of Congress, White House Deputy Counsel Patrick Philbin said the subpoenas issued by Adam Schiff's committees were invalid because they were not authorized by the full House.
Because under long-settled precedent, There had to be a vote from the House to give authority, and the administration would not respond to subpoenas that were invalid.
Meanwhile, President Trump lashed out at House impeachment manager Adam Schiff, tweeting, "Shifty Adam Schiff is a corrupt politician and probably a very sick man. He has not paid the price yet for what he has done to our country." Schiff called the tweet a threat.
This is a wrathful and vindictive president. I don't think there's any doubt about it.
You take that as a threat?
I think it's intended to be.
John Bolton has said he will testify if subpoenaed by the Senate. Democrats say reports about his new book show that Bolton must testify. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
CBN News is providing special coverage of the impeachment proceedings, and we're carrying the Senate impeachment trial of President Trump live every day on the CBN News Channel. The world of sports is devastated at basketball superstar Kobe Bryant's untimely death Sunday. Bryant, his 13-year-old daughter Gianna, and 7 others died in the helicopter crash near Los Angeles. Thousands of fans gathered outside LA's Staples Center, where Bryant played for the Lakers during his entire 20-year career.
One thing that I really noticed is for the amount of people that are out here, it's silent. Everybody's in grief, everybody's mourning, everybody has respect for this man and his family and his daughter. It's painful. We really lost somebody legendary today.
Kobe Bryant, known for his fiery competitiveness, went straight to the Los Angeles Lakers from high school at 18 years old. He won 5 NBA championships, 2 Olympic gold medals, and was an 18-time All-Star. Bryant is 3rd on the list of all-time NBA scorers, surpassed by LeBron James the night before he died. James spoke about Kobe's influence on his life as a young man.
I remember one thing that he said, he was like, if you want to try to be, great at it, or want to be one of the greats, you got to put the work in. There's no substitution to work. And I was a 15-year-old kid at that camp.
Bryant had difficulties in his personal life, facing a sexual assault charge that was dropped and a civil suit that was settled out of court. He said that incident and his struggles in his marriage led him to turn to his Catholic faith for strength and guidance. He reportedly attended Mass weekly, including the morning of the accident that took his life. He also founded a foundation to help homeless young people.
And that was Ephraim Graham reporting there. Kobe Bryant was 41 years old. Audio of air traffic control communications from the time of the crash were released today. The aircraft was flying in foggy conditions when it crashed into a rugged hillside outside LA. Officials say the fog was considered dangerous enough that local police agencies had grounded their choppers. A new law in Tennessee allows religious-based adoption agencies the right to deny services to anyone, including LGBTQ families. It also prevents those agencies from getting sued or retaliated against. A spokesperson for the governor said the governor believes that protection of rights is important, especially religious liberty. LGBTQ activists have launched an online petition calling for that law to be repealed. An Iowa woman has been honored for her tremendous commitment to care and compassion after fostering a staggering 600 kids. Linda Herring and her husband Bob have been providing a stable family home to children for the best part of 5 decades, having started taking people in while living in Oxford, Iowa. She told reporters her best friend was doing foster care for teenage girls, and she thought it would be nice to do the same, but she wanted little kids and arranged with the Department of Human Services to take kids with medical needs. Herring did not stop at fostering. She also volunteered as a first responder for nearly half a century. Wow, inspiring. Well, coming up, the important day that brought dozens of world leaders together in Israel and how people everywhere are remembering today. But before we go to break, here's a look at what's trending on CBNNews.com.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Today marks the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, the most notorious Nazi death camp. Last week, more than 40 world leaders came together to vow never again at the World Holocaust Forum in Jerusalem. Leaders included Britain's Prince Charles, U.S. Vice President Mike Pence, Russian President Vladimir Putin, and German President Frank-Walter Steinmeier. The event focused not only on remembering the Holocaust, but fighting anti-Semitism.
Anti-Semitism is something you can explain, but you cannot find a reason for it. It's against dialogue. It's against logic. It's a spiritual madness.
Combating anti-Semitism is not only a question of politics and statements and whatever comes out in the media, but it's an actual fight for our safety in Europe.
Earlier, our Gary Lane talked with Rabbi Ariel Berger about the lessons of the Holocaust. Berger is the founding director and senior scholar at the Witness Institute and the author of the new book, Witness, Lessons from Elie Wiesel's Classroom.
What would Elie Wiesel say about the young people today at Boston University, other campuses, that are either Holocaust deniers or know nothing about the Holocaust? What would he say to them?
Well, you know, there was a survey just last week, the Pew survey showed that 50% of Americans couldn't explain how many Jews were killed in the Holocaust. And there are other surveys as well recently that show that millennials, 66% of millennials couldn't identify the word Auschwitz. So it's very disturbing. Elie Wiesel was deeply committed to memory and to transmitting memory, the sacred memory of the Holocaust. And he would be very concerned, as we all are, that people are either forgetting or willfully forgetting what happened. And not just deniers, but bystanders, people who are standing off to the side, living in ignorance. And that's very, very disturbing, especially when we see a rise in anti-Semitism, and the memory of the Holocaust is more important than ever.
Now, in the book, he says, we must find what unites us, but not allow the search to collapse the distinction between us. So at a time of rising incivility in the United States, what did he really mean about that?
Well, restoring civil discourse and learning how to disagree well, whether it's in the halls of power or at a Thanksgiving dinner table, is more and more important. But he was saying that we don't have to all believe the same thing or express the same beliefs or values or believe in the same expression of God in the world. We can have differences. We can respect one another, and we can disagree about things, and we can do it with deep respect, and we can learn from one another. And he said, a beautiful quote, he said, "It is the otherness of the other which fascinates me."
His favorite book of the Bible was Job. and you discuss how he had mentioned arguing with God.
Yeah.
What did he mean about arguing with God? Should we argue with God?
Well, you know that Elie Wiesel, as a child, was a very, very religious boy, steeped in fervor. He said that he knew the streets of Jerusalem better than he knew the streets of his hometown. He studied mysticism. He prayed for the redemption of the world when the other kids were out playing ball. And he was filled with religious fervor. And then, of course, if you've read Night, you know that his faith was severely challenged, if not shattered, during the Holocaust in Auschwitz. And after the war, he tried to find a way to live a life of faith that was honest about the experience of what he called the kingdom of night, of Auschwitz and the darkness of the camps. And what he came to was what he called a wounded faith, where his expression of faith had a lot to do with arguing with God. And he would ask his questions. He would challenge God. He lived in a kind of quarrel, lover's quarrel with God for the rest of his life. And this, of course, is drawing on an old biblical Jewish tradition where Abraham argues with God on behalf of Sodom and Gomorrah. And if you notice, if you read the verses carefully, right before that, God kind of turns to the camera and says, will I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do, that I'm about to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah? There's an invitation from God to argue with God on behalf of humanity.
In the book, you mention Cambodia, you mention Bosnia, Rwanda, Darfur, and I would even add more recently the genocide against Christians and Yazidis in the Middle East. What do we do to prevent future Holocausts, future genocides? Because it doesn't seem like we've been doing a very good job of it since the Holocaust.
First of all, if Elie Wiesel were here, I believe he would be shouting about what's happening to Christians and Yazidis and others in the Middle East. And we have to pick up that cry, that rallying cry. We can't remain silent when people are suffering anywhere in the world, whether it's overseas or in our own country. And he was disturbed by this question for his whole life. He felt that it's impossible after Auschwitz that there could be another genocide. He told us in class once, we believed, the survivors believed that Auschwitz was the last one. How could there be another one? How could the world not learn the lesson? And yet we see that the world has not learned the lesson. So I believe, and he believed, that we have to go to the root of the question. It's not just about tactics and policies. It's about healing the human heart. It's about going very deeply into what makes us human. How do we learn to live together and respect? And more than respect, but to have deep reverence and awe for the image of God.
Well, I think you mentioned in the book that he said, once you hear the testimony of a witness, you too become a witness.
That's right.
Correct?
That's right.
And the book is Witness, Lessons from Elie Wiesel's Classroom, a fascinating book. I learned a lot about him, Professor Wiesel,
Professor
who
Wiesel.
was your mentor.
That's right. I just want to mention I'm continuing his work now with something called the Witness Institute, which is taking his legacy and his tools and methods for training and awakening people in moral education and applying that to leadership development. So that's the new project that I hope will continue his legacy.
Okay. Ariel Berger, thank you so much.
Thank you
Rabbi,
very much.
Pleased to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Coming up, why one NFL superstar says he's basically abandoned the Christian faith he was raised to follow.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to CBNNewsChannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
NFL star quarterback and certain future Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers has once again opened up about his personal beliefs. He's adding further details to why he has essentially abandoned the Christian faith. Our George Thomas talked with FaithWire.com's Dan Andrews about this trending story.
Dan, Rodgers was raised in a family of faith, but why is he rejecting that faith?
Yeah, well, he gave an interview with his girlfriend Danica Patrick, and now famously at this point, Aaron has kind of disbanded from his family. They've not talked. They're totally not on good terms. But he talked about his faith growing up and said how he attended church early, and that he enjoyed going at least for the first part. But then he started to question things and also looked at his own church and said he felt it was very binary, was the word that he used, and that it was exclusive and was not very welcoming to people who were different. That is how he put it. He called religion a crutch and said people use it just to make themselves feel better. And he even threw in a verse from Revelation about the 144,000 are saved. And he kind of made it sound like all Christians believe that only 144,000 people are going to be saved. And, didn't seem to, show that he knows that people have varying views on that verse. And I think that most Christians don't actually view that it's 144,000 only that are being saved. So those are just some of the reasons that he gave as to why he started to question and ultimately walk away from the faith.
Yeah. What else did he say in the podcast with his girlfriend, Danica?
Yeah, what I found interesting, George, most was that he said he was looking to find what he, quote, wanted to believe in on this spiritual journey that he was going on. So instead of searching for what's true, he was searching instead for what he wanted to believe in, what he liked the best. And so ultimately, I think that's a dangerous path for Christians to go down. I mean, if we pursued just what we wanted, I mean, if I could pursue an ideology that was like, hey, Dan's the greatest person on planet Earth, of course, and everyone should act accordingly. Well, that's a beneficial viewpoint for me, but it's just not true. So there's obvious flaws with that pursuit and that mentality that he had.
Yeah. What lessons, Dan, can we learn from his story?
Yeah, I think, and this is what I wrote about on FaithWire, I think we can, the takeaway here is that, theology matters, that being in the Word matters, understanding, the nature of God actually matters, that we can't just keep tickling ears, and kind of just being all fluff, as a church community and actually tackle tough issues. Because when we don't really understand the nature of God and we don't understand our place as his created beings, when we start to hear these other views, we can be wooed by them and be swayed by them because we're not grounded in the faith.
What's coming up on this week's Faith versus Culture?
We're going to be expanding, George, on this very topic, on the Aaron Rodgers comments, and we're going to be talking about specifically a couple of the phrases that he said, but I want to zero in on this, what I want to believe in. So we're going to look at what the Bible talks about the heart and what we want and the things we want, and how it's a very bad idea for us to pursue the things that we want. So we're going to take a look at that from a biblical perspective.
All right, fantastic. Look forward to it. Thanks, Dan.
You can catch Faith versus Culture tonight on the CBN News Channel at 9:30 Eastern. And don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after the break.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5,
Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5, Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
It has the power to influence weight loss, boost your immune system, and improve brain function.
We've seen an explosion of data on the role of the gut microbiome in health.
The free Build a Better Gut booklet reveals the latest information about the gut microbiome. You'll discover how your gut affects the rest of your health.
The gut microbiome has been linked to depression and cancer and heart disease.
Learn how to build a stronger, healthier gut.
The microbiome, if it's in good composition, are really protecting us all the time from more invasive things.
Get the Build a Better Gut booklet, free from the Christian Broadcasting Network. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut.
You need to make sure that your microbes are working with you, not against you.
And if you order online, you'll get immediate access to the Build a Better Gut series, a digital copy of the booklet, and related bonus material. Build a Better Gut today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut for your free copy.
I am Region's first ROTC graduate student.
Welcome back. Minnesota Vikings quarterback Kirk Cousins is challenging followers to read the entire Bible. Cousins recently announced his own achievement, tweeting that he has finished reading through the entire Bible. He wrote, "It took me over 2 years, but just finished reading through the entire Bible for the first time. Definitely recommend it." Cousins has been open about his faith in the past. He says it's the foundation of his life and where he finds his peace and strength before each game. His Bible Challenge Twitter post was shared more than 90,000 times. That's awesome. That's going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. Hope you'll join us next time. Have a great day.